I think we are about to be ready. So welcome to our case webinar series, where we'll dive further into one of our recent case studies. My name is Mike Peterson. I am responsible for all of our partners in the UK and the UK market as a general. In this webinar, together with Novicell and Sinclair Pharma, we will look at their latest project together, and we will hear what were the latest, or what were the thoughts before the project started, what were the challenges and the key elements of the solution, and what was the learnings from this project. We really hope to inspire others, and with me today to present, I have invited Lars from Novicell. Are you there, Lars?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Perfect. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Lars Hettelberg. I'm the head of digital section at Novicell. I've been working with web since I was 12, professionally since 2008, and I've been a developer, a designer, a bit of project management. Today, I'm a solution architect at Novicell, which means I talk to businesses and turn them into development requirements and work on projects basically.
Fantastic. And we also have Dave from Sinclair Pharma. Are you with me, Dave?
Good morning. Yes, I'm here.
Good
with
morning.
You.
Could you introduce yourself as well?
Yes, of course. So my name is Dave Baldwin. I'm the head of digital marketing at Sinclair Pharma. I've been in digital creative for about 10 years, but more recently I've been heading up the digital strategy at Sinclair. So everything from web strategy, which I think we'll touch on today, to app design, social media marketing, and project management as well. So yeah, very happy to be here. Look forward to getting into this.
Perfect. I look forward to hear everything as well. So in the next 30 minutes, Lars and Dave will go through the case with you. They'll tell you more about how they have used Umbraco to roll out and manage multiple new sites in multiple regions, all using the same CMS with some really amazing results. So Lars, will you go through the agenda?
Yes.
And while he just switches, if there's any questions for Lars and Dave during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A or the chat, and they'll try to answer them in the end of this webinar.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Mike. So today we're going to go through the challenges. I'm going to quickly talk about how we started out, how I met Dave and Sinclair Pharma in the beginning, and how we kind of got to where we are today. We're going to talk about some of the key elements of the solution, some of the great functionalities, and of course also talk about how we managed to create one CMS to manage 30 plus websites on a scalable infrastructure. I'm going to have Dave talk a bit about some of the wins. So from his perspective, from Sinclair Pharma's perspective, talk about some of the good things, and also some of the things to learn from and kind of give back to if you're also considering a similar solution as well. Finally, we'll talk a bit about some of the future perspective as well in terms of Sinclair Pharma and Novicell. But before we do, I'd just quickly like to introduce Novicell a bit for those who don't know us yet. Just spend a quick minute or two on that. So Novicell is business online. We have 8 different offices across Europe. We started in 1997, which is a long time ago now. We're 300 plus people now. We are tech independent. So while this is with Umbraco, we're doing this webinar, of course, we are still always picking the right solution. Most of the time it is Umbraco, but we do like to look at the right solution for the right job as well. We have a profit margin of 15% every single year, which we're very proud of. We're not really funded or invested in any sense. Everything is grown from 7 people in the basement to 300 plus people now across Europe, which is something we're quite proud of. And of course, I said before, we are tech independent, but we do love Umbraco. So a bit of bragging slide for us with Umbraco as well. We've been working with Umbraco for 15 years. We have over 90 people who works with Umbraco on a daily basis, delivering more than 300 solutions. I think it's fair to say that we are one of the world's most experienced Umbraco partners, at least on the numbers and also the quality. We're also delivering to the Umbraco code base. So we have people who are contributing to the actual code base of Umbraco. It also means that we track some of the best developers in the world when it comes to Umbraco. And also have several other people who are MVPs, which is Umbraco's award for the ones who contributes the most to the community. And even so, another bragging right is also that we actually build Umbraco.com with Umbraco. So that kind of also means that we are fairly trusted with Umbraco. But that's enough about Novicell. Dave, why don't you introduce a bit about Sinclair Pharma?
Sounds good. So Sinclair, we're a global aesthetics company. So we have offices all the way from Sao Paulo in Brazil, all the way across to South Korea, Seoul in South Korea. We're traditionally a British company. We're founded in the UK, but more recently we were acquired by Huadong Medicine, who are an aesthetic company in China and are owned by China Grand Enterprises. So we're now a Chinese company. We operate in a number of different markets. So you can see we're headquartered in the UK. So I'm actually obviously I'm in East Croydon, actually, if anyone knows it, in the UK. So not too far away from London, but we have offices across all of Europe as well. So Germany, in Heidelberg, Paris in France, where our global marketing team sits. And we have a portfolio that is focused on collagen stimulation. And I think if we go to the next slide, in traditional sort of Corona times, I'll talk a little bit more about the portfolio. So our portfolio is, as I said, it's focused on collagen stimulation. You may have heard of dermal fillers or injectable fillers. We have a range that is focused around sort of the beautification and enhancement. So trying to have a natural result for the patient. So our products are administered by trained professionals. They're not something that you can get and you do yourself. This is something that you would go to a trained plastic surgeon, aesthetic dermatologist, aesthetic doctor to have those treatments. We have quite a broad portfolio. The three that we're going to talk about today, Perfecta, which is a dermal filler, so that's sort of the traditional sort of lip fillers, facial fillers that you'd hear about. Silhouette Soft is a really interesting product. It's a suture or a thread that's placed under the skin to lift the skin. And Alonze is our premium collagen stimulator that creates long-term collagen stimulation up to 24 months. Instalift is just, I know we're going to touch on Instalift. That's our US version of Silhouette Soft, and I think we'll touch on the regulation a little bit. That will play into it. So yeah, full aesthetic portfolio, global company, headed out of London.
Great, thanks, Dave. So in terms of the actual case itself and the work we've been doing, so just a bit of introduction before I talk about some of the things on the slide as well. In 2019, Dave came to me and wanted to discuss a new web project. Back then, we were discussing a magazine kind of style website, a website that was intended to educate and inform visitors about the benefits of getting these treatments and the different questions you might have along the way, and ultimately be hopefully contacting a clinic that's using Sinclair Pharma's products, a lead generator of sorts. I think at the time you were mostly running on WordPress at Sinclair Pharma, so that obviously meant many CMSs, multi-WordPress sites. Content experience, so as I understand it, it was sort of difficult to kind of update the different things in the WordPress solution. And of course, also the language management in WordPress is not always the best compared to, let's say, Umbraco, for instance. Yeah, so really one of the challenges was there were too many CMSs. We really wanted to have one CMS to power everything as much as we can. And then, as Dave said, the regulatory requirements as well is a big factor when it comes to building an aesthetic website. Dave, maybe you can shed some light on what it means that you have to have regulatory requirements.
Yeah, of course. So every single region has its own regulatory requirement, basically. So if we're looking to build sites for all of our regions, so I should say I sit within our global marketing team. So we facilitate the infrastructure for all of our regions. So take the US as a really good example. The US has the FDA that people may have heard of for other industries, and we have to abide by the FDA's code for our products. So our information for use, all of the information about the product is specific to that region. Now, when we come to create a website, we have to make sure that that site abides by those rules. There are different rules for almost every region. So there are different rules between Belgium and France. There are different rules between Belgium and the Netherlands. There are different rules between Germany and Switzerland. So we have to have something that's, one, really, really, flexible and easy to adapt to those different rules. And that was one of the things, again, when we first came to Lars and said, look, this is a project for Spain. So what we refer to that as is almost an unbranded site. So it's a site that doesn't talk about the brand name. So those three brands that I mentioned to you, Perfecta, Alonze, and Silhouette, in Spain, you can't mention those based on the regulation. So we built a site based off those. And in other regions like the US, you can mention brand. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about how we split that in a minute.
Yeah, so as Dave said, there's three different types of sites, basically. We have this magazine kind of style. In Spain, for instance, we call it the unbranded site. It's, again, a site that's to educate and inform visitors to hopefully contact a clinic that uses Sinclair Pharma's products. Then, as Dave said, we have these branded sites. That's number 2 of the 3 different types, which again is promoting a specific product. So Perfecta, Alonce, Silhouette, and so on. And then also we have a corporate site, which is to, of course, talk about Sinclair Pharma as a business as well. So 3 different sites, all managed in the same CMS on multiple languages, multiple regions. Quite a big challenge, quite a big project. And of course, as I'm writing here as well, scalability. It needs to kind of scale to the world, but at the same time, because it is an aesthetics company, it also needs to look pretty good, and it needs to look different. So that's some of the challenges we kind of had to overcome and solve, really. So with that in mind, what did we end up in building instead, or building with all of this, really? So it's one CMS based on Umbraco, powering all the different websites in all the different regions. There's a massive infrastructure behind on Azure, which is interesting on its own. There's the Clinic Finder as well, which is one of the key features of the solution. The Clinic Finder is a Google Map kind of style, which then shows the different clinics on a map. I'll get that in a bit as well. There's the shared building blocks to kind of give the most out of the most value out of the features, and get the most value out of the budget of the features. We have like a shared library of different building blocks that can be used across all the different sites. And that way we can kind of get the most out of every feature and deploy it to multiple sites at once by still having a different look. At Novicell, we have something called Novicell Premium, which is our product that goes on top of Umbraco, which does a lot of the tedious tasks you have to do when you're starting a complete new project in Umbraco. And it kind of takes care of some of those tasks. It's a really good starting point always. And again, with the scalability in mind, it needs to really expand. We have a headless technology as well, which we call Novicell Headless, which is another product we put on top of things to split out. I'll get more into that in a minute as well. So, as I said, one CMS, multiple sites. Really is just, I think, as I said, 3 different types of website. I think we are currently at 10 different websites, all with distinct looks and languages and countries, and planning on doing much more than this as well. The Clinic Finder I mentioned before as well. So the Clinic Finder is one of the key features, I would say, because it's a lead generator. It's the one that kind of builds the whole business case for Sinclair Pharma going online. So a visitor can visit the Clinic Finder and view almost like a Google Maps style page. Imagine like Airbnb, but for clinics instead. And you put in your different requirements that I'm interested in this sort of treatment, or I want to be with a distance to the clinic, and then it finds relevant clinics. All the clinic data that we see here is based on integration with Sinclair Pharma's CRM. So we get the data directly from the CRM into Umbraco as well to display in these different clinics. And then comes another headache of this as well, or is another fun challenge, is that all of the data we see here is, of course, because there are so many different regions and countries, there's different CRM, there's a data sets as well, and it all has to be managed in one place in one CMS. For the shared building blocks, we are using a component library, as I mentioned. So what you see on the screen is a collaborative tool that we use together with Sinclair Pharma and Dave to kind of discuss each component on its own. So a component can live on multiple brands and multiple sites. And really what it means is that we don't have to develop the same functionality, let's say a video player or a accordion or a before and after, for instance. We don't have to develop it like 3 or 4 different times. We develop it once, and then we just need to adjust some colors and a bit of the layout so it matches the brand and the look and feel of each product. Think a bit like Lego bricks. You can kind of stack them, you can reorganize them, you can put them in different ways and orders, and it works really well also in terms of creating the content then on the page. So as I mentioned, we have another product on top of Umbraco, which we call Novicell Premium. Really what it does is it's sort of a starter kit. It makes some of those, let's say, same and tedious tasks you have to do every single time you build a new website, kind of like takes care of those from the get-go. So you get a lot of the pre-built components that we build, for instance, a video player, a headline, rich text editor, all the things that normally you have to do a bit of work every time you start a new project, it comes pre-built with. It's built in with all the SEO optimizations you can think of, scalability in terms of caching as well. We can easily integrate with other systems like we did with the CRM from Sinclair, taking some of that, let's say, work out of that integration work as well. And of course, it's then based on our best practice for Umbraco and how we build at Novicell. So we need to be quite scalable and quite global with this project as well. We need to be fairly, easy to add a new website. So when Sinclair Pharma, they want to roll out a new region in, let's say, a month from now, we can actually fairly easily do that now because we have a headless split. So without going into too much detail, because this is a fairly technical topic, the headless split means we are separating the CMS and the data from the actual website itself. So having that split between those two, that means we can fetch the data for the website in a cached file instead, and that makes for really, really performant websites. It also means that because the two, like the CMS and actual websites, are now not connected anymore, it's easy to switch one or the other out. So when we want a new look and feel for a website, we don't necessarily have to change anything on the CMS side of things. We could just simply refresh the whole design and the website itself, giving a really, let's say, different lifetimes almost of the systems. So CMS will typically last a lot longer than actual website because you want to refresh your website with new features and maybe even a whole new look as well. The headless technology and the headless idea principles is a whole topic on its own, and I think we'll save all the details for another webinar. All right, so Dave, how about you tell us some of the wins from the project?
Definitely. So Lars mentioned when we came to meet him, and when was it, 2019, I want to say, in Madrid. And we came to Lars with the idea of updating an unbranded site, as we said, for our Spanish team. Now, what really we wanted to put in place was it was a site that we needed for that region at that time. So you could call it was a tactical project. It was an improvement on what they already have. It was giving them what they needed. But we wanted to make sure that we developed a foundation for what we knew we wanted to do going forward. So we had technical discussions around, okay, so we need to do this specifically for Spain, but if we're going to look to roll this out into the UK, if we're going to look to roll this out into Singapore, we need to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that this is important. And that is ultimately what we've been able to do, because we've taken that same underlying CMS technology and all the building blocks that Lars talked about, and we have effectively cloned that for the UK site and been able to theme it, change the colors, apply their own content. Both teams have, no access to each other's properties whilst it's all still on the same CMS. And we've been able to then scale any kind of developments that we've done. So if we've added some really nice animation effects, that happens for the Spanish team, and it also happens for the UK team. So one of the really big wins has been just on the unbranded side of things, having a scalable foundation. Now, when we talk about our brands, we've got a portfolio of 4 products now, and it's going to increase. We needed to have that foundation in place, and Lars talked about the headless split. That's something that we've put in place to really be able to grow into all of the different territories that we're going to look to be in between now and our 5-year plan. And one of the other key things, and I think we won't go too much into detail on this, but we roll out sites very quickly, especially this year, and the setup of the CMS allows us to make very, very quick decisions when we all know the direction changes, choices are made that you may not have planned for. We're able to very quickly, like that, set up a new instance, have the team translate it, and there you go. You've got a local site that looks amazing. So very much we've set out this foundation for growth. The second point kind of transitions into that. As I mentioned at the beginning, and Lars touched on it as well, we're an aesthetics company. Everything we do is about how we look, really. First impressions very much count. We're that bridge between us as the pharmaceutical company, effectively, or the aesthetics company, and our physicians. They're our customers. They're the ones that matter. They're the ones that are distributing the product. But ultimately, it's the patient that's having our product, and we have to be able to facilitate and manage both of those different customers. We have to be able to create a experience that is really, really useful for the patient and also very, very helpful for the physicians as well. We're very much that bridge. And one of the kind of key aspects of that, which is the third and the most measurable driver of this, is the Clinic Finder. That is very much the bridge between us as the brand and the rest of the website and our customers, our physicians. If you're looking for, you mentioned Airbnb, Lars, it's not a bad example. If ultimately you want to go and have somewhere to stay, and you need a place to be able to find that, to be able to go and stay there. It's similar, it's a higher involvement decision deciding to have an aesthetic treatment, but you want to be able to see all of the physicians that are close to you. It needs to look amazing, so you can really have the trust in who you're going and seeing. So it needs to look great. It needs to show all of their information. It needs to show, their results, images of the clinic. Everything builds into that trust factor. A little bit like, if you were buying a car, you would go on there and you would have a look at all the different aspects of the car before you did it. It's the similar sort of customer process, customer journey. Something that also supports this, and the real sort of tactic that allows, or the real element, I should say, that allows this to be measurable is we are also using Novicell's Insights platform, which is based on Power BI. And that is effectively a data visualization tool. And I'm sure everyone on the call is, if you're having to pull data from different sources, you're looking at your GA data, you're looking at your Facebook campaigns, you're looking at your Google ads. For us, Clinic Finder is our conversion tool, right? That's our lead generator. That's where it's all got to come into that one position. And then we're able to then bring those leads back and understand what our return on investment was. And having that all within one location, within one CMS, as you can imagine, makes it a lot easier for us to manage.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And in terms of like the learnings and what you would kind of recommend to other people who would be in front of, say, a similar challenge or a big project as well, what are some of the things you would share with that? We could share.
Yeah, sure. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, that's probably been used many times before, but this is the case. We took quite a pragmatic approach. We came in with a site that was a tactical implementation that we wanted to make. But obviously, we knew that there was going to be steps down the line, the challenges that we were going to have to bring this to multiple markets as well. So I think it is very important to have your goal in mind. This is where we want to get to, but at the same time, don't just rush to that goal. You want to be able to test, make sure this works. We rolled out this platform in Spain first and proved that it was effective before moving it on to other regions. And again, keeping in mind how we set that site up, it allowed us to do that. So it wasn't a case that we did this proof of concept and then scrapped it and went and did it and had to scrap it and do it in other project in other regions, I should say. It was very quick for us to be able to move forward, but not jumping straight in at the deep end. The other aspect here for the Moscow, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this term, that kind of ties into that because we haven't all got the types of, let's say, the Unilever budgets or the Coca-Cola budgets. We haven't always got all of the money to do everything at once, and creating that Moscow list will really give you the focus on exactly what's important. So really picking out those MVP elements. What is it that we really need to achieve the goals and of the objectives of what the team is looking to accomplish, and then strive for that in the final product. Don't overlook the little things, they matter. Now, this is really, really key. I think this is the most important point. When we were looking at benchmarking against other sites that are in the industry, we're looking at other industries as well and seeing, especially fast-moving consumer goods, and seeing how they have, really, really high-quality sites. It's always those little details. If you imagine you create a site, you think this looks brilliant. If you just add, there's a few little things, maybe it's a little animation here, maybe it's just a little bit of texture here, perhaps it's maybe it's just a color around a certain object or a slight thing, the way something moves. Those little things really do sort of make it stand out against what is the tradition. And especially in aesthetics, a lot of the sites are quite flat, quite sort of generic. And we want to do, especially with what we're going forward with, something that's really dynamic and really catches the eye of the user and is really user friendly and gives that really great online experience. So I can't emphasize enough that if you do have a little bit of budget as part of this, to put it on that kind of that MVP, that little bit of a touch to it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks for sharing. So in terms of the future as well, so this is more about the future of, let's say, Novicell and Sinclair, and then what's the next step now in terms of the case and the website and everything we've been building. By the end of this year, we're looking to launch 30 plus websites, which is a huge task on its own, considering I think we've launched 10 by now. So we're launching another 20 from now till the summer, August, something. That's the roadmap right now, at least. As Dave mentioned, the Moscow kind of must-have, could-have, nice-to-have, and those is a really good way to also have a backlog of things. So Dave mentioned the things that you want to have for the launch and like the must-haves really. So when you launch a new website, you might have big ideas and big things that you want to do with it. But ultimately, there's also a budget at the end to keep in mind. Having that kind of backlog, having that Moscow process to go through gives you a nice list of things that you then can pick up when budget allows it, let's say 6 months after a launch of a website. So that's what we're working together now with Sinclair as well to kind of keep improving the website, because the website is never really done. Kind of always have to improve it and make sure it kind of works. And yeah, as Dave also mentioned before, Novicell Insights. So Novicell Insights, that's a visualization tool of data. You can connect multiple different sources and kind of get a real-time view of how is my campaign performing, how is my website performing, how is the clinic finder in Sinclair Pharma's case performing. It's also a nice way to, for instance, for Sinclair Pharma to give back to their customers as well. They can give a snapshot of letting them know. So we drove 20 new patients to your clinic through this website. Would you like to work more with us on getting that promoted and so on? So there's also a benefit that way. So not only for Sinclair Pharma to know how it's going, but even Sinclair Pharma's customers to let them know how it's all going. Yeah, and I think that kind of concludes what we wanted to present today. Dave, I think just one more thing that could be interesting for people to hear. So how many different marketing teams are now working on the platform? How many people actually working together, the content editors?
Yeah, it's good question. You put me on the spot. So we have the UK team. So we've got the let's go from us first. So the UK team, which is 2 people. We have 1 person in Germany. We have 2 people in Spain. We have 6 people in Brazil. We have 2 people in the US. And then we have 1 person in Singapore as well, making sure I try not to forget anyone because I'll probably see this. And then we have our global team as well. So we have my team, the digital team, which is formed of 3 people as well that all have access as well. So yeah, there's us as the support function, and there is generally 1 to 2 people in each region, with the exception of Brazil, that is a much bigger team, all working on the platform simultaneously.
So 20 plus is a fair number, I think, maybe even 25, all working at the same time on the same CMS, on the same websites. So quite an achievement on its own, I think.
And it'll increase as well once we add a couple more people.
Good times. All right.
Perfect, and thank you very much. It's always so inspiring to hear how a journey, or hear the journey of the project, from start to finish, and also the future perspective. We do have one question in the Q&A that Tamsin has asked: Is Login Portal built in Umbraco? Does the site integrate with a third-party database to manage user data? Example, Salesforce.
Yeah, I can take that one. So Umbraco out of the box comes with Umbraco members, which is a way for you to manage your users being logged in. There's also all the content editors who can also log in via Umbraco users instead. There's also a possibility to extend on Umbraco so you can rely on a third party. For instance, at Novicell, we have some clients who have an Active Directory. So the same thing you would use to log into your mail or your Outlook or even your computer will be the same login then to Umbraco as well. So Umbraco definitely has the possibility of extending that. For our solution here in this case, everything is managed via the normal Umbraco login.
Perfect. And I don't see any other questions, so this will conclude our webinar. Thank you very much, Lars, and thank you very much, Dave. It's very, very inspiring just to hear your thoughts around it and also the outcomes. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.